Hello everyone, welcome to JTV. Today we're joined by Rabbi Tom Meyer, who I've gotten to know over the past few months, and he is just a incredible breath of fresh air that is just has such a unique perspective on things and is a brilliant educator and communicator. He's a real character, and he's joining us from Israel, which is where he's been teaching for quite a while. But his story starts in America. He was a journalist in America involved in politics, and eventually came to Israel later in his life and became more religiously observant and went into Jewish education and Jewish outreach. And most recently has been teaching at Bar Ilan University. He's just retired, so obviously I want to wish him Mazel Tov on his recent retirement. But Rabbi Meyer, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Where
You say Mazel Tov, and some people probably said goodbye and good riddance, and other people are sad. I'm not sure, but I'll take your Mazel Tov.
Well, maybe from my perspective, it means we get to have more time for these kind of conversations. So from my perspective, it's Mazel Tov. So I actually want to talk about some questions within the internal Jewish world. Oftentimes on JTV, we talk about philosophy and Jewish kind of ideas and relationship ideas, but I actually want to do something that we don't do so much on JTV, which is actually to look at the kind of some social questions about what's happening with the Jewish community and in Israel and the diaspora. And I want to start by asking you just a straight up question, which you can take in any direction you want to, which is, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges or issues facing the Jewish people today?
Well, the Jewish people don't have a clear key issue. That we always have a bunch of key issues. But and I also would like to start on a positive note, because it's easy to look at the bad stuff. The positive note is we have a country. There's a lot of people learning. There's a lot of religious people. There's a lot of families having kids. So on a major level, we're highly successful. So we have to look at that, But now, if you want to say what is the key issue, it's got to be education, because forget the fact that a lot of secular Jews, and I think it's much worse in America than in England, because in England I think there's more Jewish consciousness. I think Jews know they're a little bit different than the rest of the English. American Jews think they just fit in and everybody loves them, and everybody's dancing the whore over there. They've convinced themselves. So secular Jews, they don't. A lot of them just don't know very much about Judaism. And I just spoke to somebody from the Department of Education in the Likud. It's the political party, the Likud in Israel, and she told me that Ashkenazim in America, it's well over 70% are now intermarrying. That's terrifying. That's going to have implications politically. Not Sephardim. Sephardim are much less. So, but forgetting this for a minute, the secular community, the religious community, the number one problem is education. You are now, as a teacher, competing with kids that sit in a classroom and they got their cell phones on. Everybody knows this. It's not just the religious, it's across the board. But the religious are doing it too, and the Haredim are doing it too. Not in a classroom, because they're afraid they'll be kicked out of the school. But if anybody thinks that these kids, even the Haredi kids, are not listening to cell phones and watching internet, they're just fooling themselves. Everywhere I've gone, this is the problem. So that means there's a lot of people competing with us. A kid who's 14, 15, less, 12, he's getting all kinds of messages from the internet, and then he goes to school, getting another message. He might be getting another message from his parents. You can't stop this, because if you try and stop all the cell phones, the kid will go next door. He'll go down the street. And the only way to really deal with this is excellent teaching, excellent teachers, and excellent education. So, you mentioned before we went on that I watched the debate between Pence and Harris for the vice presidency of the United States. And I watched some of the recaps. I didn't watch the debate because I can't take too much more of these people. But they had debate preparation, which means, let's say Pence, the Republican, somebody played the role of Kamala Harris, and they spent time and having a moderator throwing a question out, and then Pence had to know how to answer it. By the way, Trump and Biden also had people standing in for the opposite person in a preparation for the debate. And that means that when they went on, you could not hit them with a question that they didn't expect.
Right.
And that is a major problem in classrooms, because I have a daughter-in-law who told me one of the things that could have turned her off to Judaism, thank God it didn't, but she asked the question in class. I went to a Haredi school. She asked the question. She didn't get an answer. We can't do this. There's just too much competition. Yeah. And therefore, there should be training programs that are constantly being upgraded. Every teacher should have to go to it. And every teacher should have experience with just about any question you can imagine. There's so many issues out there. I don't care if it's politics, history, feminism, gay marriage, all this kind of stuff. And there's a lot of minefields in there. And they have to know how to deal with it, or you just get written off. You don't even know you got written off, but the kid wrote you off. We need teacher training that specializes in that. And we have to have, another thing we need is this just costs money. That's the problem with it. What if you had these, now if you're going to university, a lot of them, you don't buy textbooks anymore. You get it on your computer. And it has movies. The text may be biology, but it'll show you how to take apart, a frog or something. And then it'll have famous scientists speaking. Why can't we do this? Why can't we be putting out stuff, even the Chumash, that has people teaching, but not just the talking head, actors acting something out. The kids are visual. Now, that's going to cost a lot of money. But there's just no way around this anymore if we want to hold the kids, because they're living in a visual world. So if you ask me what the number one issue is, I would say it's excellent education, excellent teacher training for guys and for girls, male and female teachers that know how to answer anything that's going to get thrown at them. Interesting teachers and visual aids that are not primitive, but good visual aids. All of this costs a lot of money. And you know as well as I don't know England, I know America, and I know Israel. The day schools are all struggling financially. And a lot of Jewish money is going into other causes, especially secular people. So you have to add to that excellent fundraising that brings in money and gets professional people in there that know how to put out real movies, and there'll be opposition to it from some quarters. But we can't play this game anymore. We're losing a lot of kids.
Yeah, I totally hear you, and that's actually one of the reasons why we set up JTV, for that specific reason. And what do you say to people who ask, is it actually more to do with the family and the home than the educational institutions? Because actually in the UK, over the last 10, 20, 30 years, it was believed that one of the ways that we'll be able to fight Jewish apathy and assimilation is through pumping in lots of resources and finance and innovation into Jewish schoolings. But people have started to think more recently, they've questioned the effectiveness of that approach, and they've actually asked, well, do we need to have more emphasis on the home and family life? Which one is it? Which one's more important?
Yeah, the home's the most important. You cannot count anymore on two working parents and the kids going off to school, and the school's going to deal with everything. You can't count on it. You just can't, because often the schools, they don't have what I'm talking about. Teachers that can answer every question. Look, I had a parent call me up. You'll think this is crazy. He called me up and he said that the Rebbe told the class that if you don't do third meal on Shabbos, you're not going to go to heaven. And when Mashiach comes, you won't see the Mashiach if you don't do third meal. Sudat Shlishit. And the girl freaked out because some homes don't do the third meal. So she comes home and she tells her father, basically, the Rebbe says, we're not going to be there for Mashiach. We're not going to get to Olam Haba. Now, I know that the Gemara says certain things, but you got to know how to weigh it and who you're talking to. The father he was just incensed. So he goes and he talks to the principal, and the principal says, "What do you want me to do? This guy's been teaching here 40 years. You want me to fire him? I can't fire him. You want me to talk to him? He doesn't listen." Well, okay, so now you can't, parents have to be willing to also know how there should be classes for parents. How do you answer your kids' questions? The classes should meet once every 3 weeks, and all the parents should be able to come, and you should have good teachers that know how to help the parents answer the questions. Parents have to deal with this. You cannot fully count on the schools anymore, not at this point. So it's the home. And by the way, in the home, love, 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 love. You have to know how to stand up to your kids, but it's got to be love, love, love. Not, I don't like the, no, 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 no. You can't do this, you can't do that, and fighting with the kids, because I have asked students, I don't want to hear personal stories in public, but how many of you feel your parents have turned you off? And somebody will get mad listening to this, saying, "How could you ask that in a classroom?" A lot of kids put their hands up. My parents just screamed at me. They made Shabbos unpleasant. You can't do this anymore. You got to be crazy, because there's just, by the time the kid's 15, your yelling is not going to work. And they're going to go talk to their friends. If parents did that, we're not in the same world we were in anymore. It's a shocking world that changes every five years. And therefore, it's the home. But that does not reduce the need of the schools to have visual aids, good movies they can show, and high quality educational visual material, which I haven't seen out there. Maybe there's stuff being produced. At what point we talk, because we have the means of doing it. There's Jews made the internet. All the what do you call it when you can watch stuff on a movie or something on the internet? The technology that produced that, there were Jews in Israel that did that. We have the people. We just don't have the money or the creative talent going in making this stuff. But it'll catch the kids. Pictures catch the kids. Movies catch the kids.
Yeah. I actually come across a lot of parents who are, their parents, so it would be sort of people, my grandparents' kind of age, gave them enough of a sense of Jewish identity and Jewish pride, but then they sort of felt that would transfer to their kids by osmosis. Let's say they're relatively traditional, maybe not that observant, but they just thought those things would transfer by osmosis to their kids. But that's not really happening. And a lot of kids are either they're sort of going one way and becoming very into their Judaism and interested, or just going the other way. And a lot of parents just feel, maybe there's a question of, did they not have enough educational resources or input themselves? Maybe they weren't putting enough of a conscientious effort into giving their children a Jewish identity. Maybe they didn't know what to do. I've often wondered, what do you say to parents who are in that position where they're just not sure what to say or do when they have children who are in their early 20s, let's say, or teens or whatever it is, and they're just not really interested in their Jewish identity.
Let me shock you. I live in a neighborhood in Israel that's 95% religious. Yeah? Got a lot of British people out here. It's Ramat Beit Shemesh. And anybody from Ramat Beit Shemesh, if they're watching this, they're going to hang me when I start talking. There is a lot of divorce in the community. There is drug use in the community. There are families, parents on tranquilizers. There's a lot of bad stuff going on, and it's pushed under the table. And in the Haredi community, they don't want to talk about it because they're afraid it'll ruin shidduchim. And you run to I can't say the answer is therapists and stuff. I think it's just, we need really good rabbis, communal rabbis, and people that know how to deal with these problems. We can't push it under the table. Where people are dreaming if they think it's going to go away. You don't flip a coin with your child.
I'm talking.
If I put 10 cups of arsenic, 10 cups on the table, and I said one of them has arsenic. Now drink up. Just pick one cup. Drink up. Nobody's going to do it because it's 1 in 10 that they'll die. Well, what if your kid is 1 in 10 or 2 in 10 or 3 in 10 that he could go off?
I'm not so much talking about religious parenting. I'm talking about people who, let's say, are traditional. I don't know how much you get it in America or Israel, but traditional people who aren't, they're not overly, massively observant, but they keep some things, and they're feeling that they haven't passed on that sense of identity and pride to their children.
Yeah, of course we get it in America.
Yeah,
British are more because the British that go back 40 or 50 years, they were very aware of anti-Semitism. Pardon me, they identify much stronger as Jews because I think they know that a lot of Brits just don't like them.
Yes.
But in America, a lot of Jews think the American non-Jews do like them.
Right.
Although they're getting nervous because there's so many Muslims in America now. So what I'm saying is that Jews 50 years ago, and a lot of them were on the East End, and they might have, their parents probably came from Poland and all. They had a very strong pride in being Jewish. They weren't particularly knowledgeable, a lot of them. They had but then they sent their kids to university. They didn't go to university, but they sent their kids to go to university. Now you go to university and you're going to Oxford or Cambridge or University of London, and you're hearing a lot of attacks on Israel and a lot of attacks on religion, and you got professors that are attacking it, and they don't realize what their kids are hearing. And so we're not in the same world. We're just not.
So what would you say to a parent that just feels they're at a loss, their kids are not interested, and they don't know what to do to try, and they feel like maybe it's too late. Their kids are in their 20s by now, they're adults, they can make their own choices, but they feel that their kids don't share that same sense of Jewish pride.
Tell the parents, start learning, go to a class, find a rabbi you can relate to. If you're a businessman, find a rabbi that is down to earth, because businessmen like down to earth people, and start learning. Start a class in your house with a couple of friends. Your kid will see it. It'll make a difference. I'll tell you, in the United States, there's not a university. I shouldn't say that. Probably 90% of the universities are now anti-Israel. The parents just have no idea what the kids are hearing in university. They just don't know. They don't know the promiscuity, or maybe they do know, but you want to do something about it. Have a class in your house. If your kid's living at home, maybe he'll come to the class, but he'll see you care about it. And don't try and ram it down his throat. They don't want to hear any lectures. If you're talking to him more than 3 or 4 minutes about a lecture, you lost him, because he doesn't want to hear it. You can do that. Do something that shows your child that you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk.
Right.
To stay up to date with JTV content, click subscribe here if you're on YouTube and hit the alarm bell. And if you're on Facebook, hit the like button, and under following, click see first. If you enjoy watching JTV content and want to help us continue to grow, please consider making a donation to us by clicking here.